Hey, what's up everyone? This is Aaron from Studio 3B. Today I wanted to do an updated video on installing macOS Sonoma from scratch on PC hardware. So, most of you are running Windows, some of you are running Linux, some of you already have your Hackintosh up and running and you just want to get Sonoma running on your PC. Coming from all different angles here, I'd like to try to do something that'll work for everybody. So the method I'm going to use is a 2 USB method. One USB, I'm going to install basically a live CD of Linux, and I want to use that to get the macOS software on the other USB, which will be your install CD for macOS. So one USB will be for getting Linux and creating the installer, and the other USB will be for holding the installer. There's a couple caveats to know with Sonoma. First of all, Broadcom Wi-Fi cards are no longer supported, so that will be backwards compatible only under certain conditions, which we are going to use to fix that. We're going to use something called OpenCore Legacy Patcher. That will patch the operating system to get the legacy Wi-Fi working, and we'll have a few extra drivers on our USB or on our EFI partition to get the Wi-Fi working. So this is going to be a couple extra steps involved with getting Wi-Fi working and being backwards compatible in Sonoma for older Broadcom Wi-Fi cards. If you haven't done a Hackintosh before, I'll take my time, I'll be patient, and you need to take your time and be patient too. So this is not a simple one hour job. This is going to take you some time. Be patient and just have fun with it. And if you run into trouble, there's plenty of communities out there. There's Discord communities and Hackintosh Reddit groups and everything like that to ask questions. But I'm here to just help you, give you a visual guide on how to do this. Okay, once again, I'll take my time and you should take yours too. So first thing we're gonna do is look on my desktop. Okay, I'm gonna go into here. This is my Sonoma desktop, and I just wanna show you this is kind of the end result. This is where we're gonna end up when we're done. I have backed up my computer to Time Machine, so I fully plan on restoring this whole thing when I'm done. So just to show you my specs here, it's a Mac Pro Symbiosis, which is a Mac Pro 7.1. I have 3.4 gigahertz quad core Intel processor, i7. I have an AMD Radeon RX 660, 8 gigabyte. So if you don't have an AMD graphics card and you need a graphics card, stop right now. If you have NVIDIA, it's not gonna work. Just go and buy yourself an AMD supported graphics card. 32 gigabytes of RAM, and I have to blur out my serial number. This is currently Sonoma 14.5. That's where we're going. So now the first thing I'm going to do is download a live CD of Linux. So first bring up Safari, and let's do something that's very common for everybody. Let's download Ubuntu. So go to Ubuntu, okay? And this is going to let you try everything before you install it. So you won't have to actually install this on your computer. Yeah, let's download Ubuntu. Burn a DVD on, nope, we're going to create a bootable disk on macOS. Let's download this. We need a USB. We said we have that. So now we're going to prepare it. First, we're going to create a MS-DOS FAT GUID partition map disk named Ubuntu. So let's do that first. So go to Disk Utility and go to the USB you inserted. This is going to be completely erased from memory. So let's go to Erase, MS-DOS FAT32, US, and we'll call this Ubuntu. Okay, now that that's done, let's go back to the browser. Now we're going to use Etcher. If you don't want to use command line to burn your USB, let's install Etcher. Download Etcher for macOS. So if you're coming from Windows, you're going to download Etcher from Windows. This program runs cross-platform, so you should be able to do the same steps regardless of what operating system you're running on. If you already know how to burn an ISO to a USB, you can just go ahead and do that right away. So let's go to Get Ubuntu at the top, click Download Ubuntu Desktop, and download. All right, and you don't have to sign up for their newsletter. Just wait a second and it downloads it. Okay, once it's downloaded, in Etcher, click Flash from File. Go to Downloads and select the Ubuntu ISO. Select the target, select your USB that you have inserted that you don't mind losing everything on, well, you already erased it. So hit select one and then hit flash. Put your password in for your operating system. Let it install to the USB. So that's going to take a few minutes. All right, that took a really long time. It's still validating the USB. So let's give it a few more minutes here. Okay, the flash is finally complete on the USB. Let's close Balena. Now the USB has Ubuntu Live CD on it. So now let's reboot into the USB and get going on creating the macOS installer. Okay, when it reboots, press F8 a few times or delete to get to the BIOS, but you got to choose the BIOS boot option. You got to choose the boot option to the USB. And then let's say try or install Ubuntu. Okay, that took about a minute or two to boot. All right, so this is Ubuntu. So the first thing we're going to do, let's open up a web browser. And then we're going to go through this little tutorial. Just say try Ubuntu for now. Okay. And it's going to ask you a bunch of annoying questions on starting the browser. So just skip all that. So this is just a kind of a live CD. Okay, first thing we're going to do is go to Dortania guide. This is the OpenCore install guide. Okay, so if you haven't read this already, make sure you've read this. Make sure your hardware is supported by macOS. Make sure that you have time and patience and an Ethernet connection. So you don't want to depend on Wi-Fi. And, you know, a good knowledge of the command line will be good. So you're going to need Python. Great. Let's go to creating the USB in Linux. Let's go to download Mac Recovery. And let's download, go to tags and hit 1.0.0 and download the OpenCore release. Let's extract that. And go to Utilities, Mac Recovery. Let's copy that path. Copy location. Let's go to Terminal. And let's go to CD and then Control-Shift-V and paste that path down. Okay, it gives you a list of command line commands to install different versions of macOS. Let's download the latest Sonoma using Python 3 and the macrecovery.py script. So copy that command and right mouse click in the terminal and hit paste. So you should be in the Mac Recovery directory already, and then hit enter. And that's going to download the latest and greatest Sonoma installer. Okay, now that that's done, let's go to making the installer. So we're going to do a very simple method of doing this. I'm just going to take my USB and put it in the computer. This is the second USB. We're running off of one USB for Ubuntu. This is the one that's going to have macOS. Okay, next thing you're going to do is go to disks. Make sure you select the USB drive that actually is going to hold macOS and not the one that you're currently booted off of. And go to the three dots in the upper right, click Format Disk, and don't overwrite data is fine. Let's create it with GPT partitioning. And let's hit Format. All data will be erased. You have to be okay with that. Okay, so now that that's done, let's create a new partition. Make it the whole disk. Let's call it USB. I'm just going to call it USB. And it's format used for all systems and devices FAT. Okay, create. All right, that's done. Now we're going to go to Files and copy this com.apple.recovery boot from your Mac Recovery directory. So we're in Downloads, OpenCore, Utilities, Mac Recovery, com.apple.recovery.boot. Copy that. Go to your USB drive and just paste it right in there, right in the root. Let's give it a second to copy over. Okay, that took about a minute or two. Now that that's done, go to Downloads, OpenCore, go to x64 and copy the EFI folder to USB right in the root. So there's no EFI partition on this USB. The whole thing is a FAT partition, and we're copying EFI and com.apple.recovery boot right into this USB. go to EFI, make sure you have the boot, and then OC. Go to drivers. We can get rid of mostly all of these. So if you change your view to details and select them all, so Control A, and then so follow the guide. We're going to keep open runtime.efi. Uncheck that and hit delete on all the other ones. Make sure you're working out of your USB drive. Okay, go back, go down to tools and Control A, and then keep open shell and delete everything else. Go back, and everything should be good for now for the EFI directory. Okay, next thing we're going to do is start gathering our files. So go to firmware drivers and download hfsplus.efi. Copy that and go to USB EFI OC drivers and paste it there. All right, and then you're going to go down to kext, download Lilu, release, open that, extract it, and just copy the kext folder, not the other folder, just not the DSYM folder, just the kext folder. Copy that and put that in USB EFI OC kext. Download virtual SMC, the release version. Open that up, extract it, go to kext. Okay, copy SMC processor, SMC Super IO, and especially virtual SMC. I have a Haswell computer, so it's a desktop PC, so I'm not going to use the battery, Dell sensor, or light sensor. Copy that to the USB. Copy that to, go to files, go to USB, EFI, OC, kext, paste those three in there. Go back to gathering files, scroll down. Now, based on your hardware, you're going to need to download various kexts, which are drivers for macOS, but definitely you need whatever green. So download whatever green, release, open that up, extract it, or copy whatever green.kext. That's the only folder you'll need. Put that on USB, EFI, OC, kext. Okay, go back to gathering files. For onboard audio, you may want Apple ALC. I have an Intel NIC, so I'm gonna download Intel Mousy, extract that, go into Intel Mousy release folder, and just copy the one Intel Mousy kext to USB, EFI, OC, kext. Paste that in here. Go back to gathering files. Go to USB Toolbox. Go to the kext and download tags. 1.1.1 is the latest here. Download the release folder. Extract the zip. And copy USB Toolbox and UTB default. Copy those two folders to USB, EFI, OC, kext. Paste that there. All right, go back to gathering files. Check to see if there's anything else you might need for your particular hardware. Like if you have an AMD, you need to do different things. If you have a laptop, you also need to do extra things. Next thing you're going to do is go to SSDTs. So noticing here, I have a Haswell computer. I need a plug. We also need SSDT EC. So let's just click on the first one. Let's go to SSDT time and click on the easy way. And click on this SSDT time link and download the script as a zip. Open it up, extract it, double click there, and copy this location. Open up a terminal and do CD to that location, paste. We're gonna run SSDT time. So let's ls to see what's in this folder. We have SSDT time.py. So let's do Python 3./SSDT time.py. All right, now we want SSDT EC and we want the plugin type. So let's do first P, dump the current system's ACPI tables. All right, and then 2, fake EC, enter, and then 5, plugin type, enter. Depending on your hardware, again, you might need to do different things. So read the guide. Okay, we can close the terminal. Let's go back to SSDT Time Master in your downloads and go to results. In here, you should see a bunch of files. Copy SSDT EC AML and SSDT plug AML. I'm going to copy that to USB EFI OC ACPI right in there. Okay, go back to gathering files, scroll down. Once you're done with that, now it's time to configure your plist. So go to configure plist setup, config.plist setup, and go to creating your config.plist. Notice you have to copy the sample.plist from OpenCore package. So that's in your downloads, OpenCore docs. There's a sample.plist, copy that, and copy that to USB EFI OC, and paste that right in the root of OC directory. Rename this file to config.plist. All right, now we need to download property. So go to property from corp.newt, download that as a zip, extract it. All right, and then we're going to copy that location, or you could just say open in terminal. I guess that's a good way to do it. Python 3./property.py. It looks like we need to install tkinter. So let's do, okay, so first you need to sudo apt install python 3-tk. Install that. Then you need to do python 3./property.py. That should allow property to run. Now we're going to do file open, and then go to the root directory and go to media Ubuntu, and there's your USB. Go to EFI OC config.plist. All right, now this will allow you to edit the config.plist. Delete the top warnings. Control S to save. Do file OC clean snapshot. Select the OC folder. It should default to that location, and just click OK. All right, that got everything loaded up. Go to your particular config documentation. So I'm going to go to Intel desktop config.plist under Haswell. And I'm going to follow this guide and basically complete this config.plist according to this guide. So going to device properties, I'm going to use a desktop Haswell iGPU only for computing tasks, and it doesn't drive a display. So I'm going to go down to device properties, and I don't need this particular node right here under add. So I'm going to delete the first node under add, and I'm going to add a new node, add new child under add, and that's going to be a dictionary. And I'm going to copy this string and call that the name of the node. Then I'm going to add a new child under that, and that's going to be a data. And I'm going to copy this number for desktop Haswell iGPU is only used for computing tasks and does not drive a display into the data value, and that is called AAPL-IG platform ID. So that should help with the display. Okay. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is go down to kernel, quirks, Apple CPU PM config lock should be false. All right. And we're just going to basically match up to this documentation. So this should be true. This should be true. This should be true. This should be true. Going down to miscellaneous debug, put Apple debug to true, Apple panic to true, target 67. Scan policy under security 0. SecureBootModel default disabled. So SecureBootModel to install Sonoma is going to need to be disabled. So type out disabled, capital D. And then vault should be called optional, capital O. Spell that right. Scroll down, hide auxiliary. Go down to the boot args. And we're going to put debug equals 0x100. ALC ID equals 1. And we're going to put, I'm going to put a boot arg for my graphics card. I have a Navi GPU, so I'm going to place this boot arg in here. AGDP mod equals Pykera. All right. Eventually, we're going to disable SIP, so we'll do that after we install Sonoma. Next thing we have to do is get the platform info. So this is where your SymBIOS needs to be configured. So here it's just defaulted to some settings. So what we have to do is download a program to generate your SymBIOS. So download that zip, open it up, extract it, go to that folder and hit open in terminal. And then we're gonna python 3./gen symbios.py. And then we're gonna go 3 generate SymBIOS. Give it a second. And then we have to type in the SymBIOS model name. So you have to do a little research and look up what's the best SymBIOS for your motherboard, for your hardware, your CPU, and your graphics card particularly. So for this, we're going to do Mac Pro 7.1. This is for my particular hardware. And this gives you a bunch of numbers, and you put these numbers in here. So Mac Pro 7.1 goes to system product name, and then the serial number goes, Control-Shift-C is to copy, not Control-C on the terminal. Serial number goes to system serial number. Board serial, Control-Shift-C, goes to MLB. System UUID, Control-Shift-C, goes to system UUID. And Apple ROM, Control-Shift-C, goes to ROM. Now that should work fine. Again, I have done this before on this computer, so I'm going to use the same serial number as I had previously to do this tutorial. So I'm going to basically copy back over these values from the other EFI that I backed up that I had working originally, so that I get the same registered computer with Apple when I do iMessages and Apple iCloud and everything. You want it to have the same serial number, so you have to use the same back up your EFI. If you're doing this from macOS originally, make sure your EFI folder is backed up and use the same values that you already had. That way you get the same serial number registered with Apple. So I'm going to close this terminal and go to my backup location and restore these values. One thing you should do for certain is copy the serial number and go to a new tab in your browser and go to Apple Check Coverage. Check your device coverage and paste that serial number in there and put it in the CAPTCHA. And then if it gives you something that says please enter a valid serial number, that means that that's actually a good serial number to use, because Apple does not know of this serial number. So that means nobody else out there has that serial number, and that's what you're looking for. But if it says something else other than that, run gen SymBIOS again and just get a different serial number until this says please enter a valid serial number, and then go with that set of numbers. So just a little tip. Once that's done, keep going down. UEFI quirks and go to ignore invalid flex ratio. And that should be true. I'm going to put APFS version. I'm going to put -1 for no restriction. So version. I'm going to put for min version and max and min date, I'm going to put -1. Again, your BIOS settings need to be set up properly. So let's go ahead. We have our config.plist set up. Let's go ahead and reboot. And from here, you would make sure your BIOS settings are correct for macOS. I will leave a link in the description to that video that I set up about BIOS specifically. So this computer is already set up for Hackintosh, so my BIOS is already ready to go. So I'm going to kind of skip that step. But if you haven't done your BIOS yet, please see my other video. That will help you a lot. So now this USB drive should be pretty good to go. Close everything up here and reboot. Okay, I'm gonna it asks you to remove the installation. I'm just gonna press enter. Now press F8 or delete, and then go to the flash drive of the macOS installer and open the UEFI option, hit spacebar, go to USB external DMG. Let's give it a second. Okay, if all goes well and you did your config right and got all the right drivers, you should have reached this screen. This is the macOS Sonoma installer screen, or the recovery screen, so to speak. So from here, you could either just reinstall macOS Sonoma if this is something that is just coming from another Hackintosh and you just want to upgrade it. Or if this is a fresh install, or you want a fresh install, go to Disk Utility, go to View, Show All Devices, and go to your disk, click Erase, and call it whatever you want. I'm going to call mine Mac Disk. Make sure the format is APFS and it's GUID partition map. Click Done. Exit Disk Utility and click Reinstall macOS Sonoma. Click Continue. Hit Agree. Select Mac Disk or whatever you called it. Click Continue. And then now you got to wait for the installer to go. It'll reboot several times. Take a little while to install. So give it some time. Okay, everyone. So after about, 45 minutes to an hour of restarts and installation time, hopefully if you got your config right, you will reach the Welcome to macOS screen, which is select your country or region. And congratulations, you did the hard work. If you didn't get this far the first time, don't beat yourself up. You need to go back to your config, go back to the Dortania guide, and you need to ask around and just look through it line by line, read the documentation line by line to get what you need to get here. So that being said, I'm going to select country or region. I'm going to continue with the defaults, and I'm going to restore from Time Machine. So say you're doing an upgrade from Ventura and you wiped out your disk. If you have a Time Machine backup, you can restore everything from a Ventura version into Sonoma. Or if you have some other version, Time Machine will work for upgrading your disk. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to just restore my stuff from Time Machine so I don't have to do it again later. I'm just going to restore everything. And then this is going to take quite some time, more than likely. So I'm going to let this run, and I'm going to check back with you when this is done. Hey, what's up, guys? We're back. It's been several hours into the next day waiting for this Time Machine backup to restore. So thank God it's completed. I've never had too many issues restoring from Time Machine, so I'm pretty grateful for that technology. It is something very nice. So I restored my whole computer setup for my Mac or Hackintosh so that I'm able to have all my software back and all my configuration. So now that that's done, I'm going to click Done, and I'm going to sign in. After that, it's going to require your Apple ID to sign in. Okay, guys, now that that's logged in here, after the restore, so we've installed macOS Sonoma clean, and I've restored from Time Machine just to save myself some time. If you don't have a Time Machine backup, you'll have a fresh install. So some of the software that you might need, well, you just have to re-download and reinstall. But if you had a Time Machine backup, you would just restore from that. Great. So next thing we're going to do is get the EFI from your USB partition and put that on the EFI partition of your boot disk. So let's go ahead, download a program called Mount EFI. So Mount EFI, you're going to go to the Corp Newt version. That's the one I use. There's several versions. Then just download the entire directory here, code, download zip. Okay, go to that, open that up, control click the command file, and say open. And then it's going to prompt you for this security issue, just hit open. Just select the boot drive, so that's 1 Mac disk for me. Put your password in, and then go to Finder, go to the USB drive, go to the EFI folder, and copy the boot and OC folders. Copy that, and go to the EFI partition and put that in the EFI folder. Paste 2 items. Great. Now, next time you boot, you should be on the hard drive, which is great to know, and not needing your USB. So now let's eject the USB and save that for backup purposes. Like if something goes wrong and you can't get into your Hackintosh, it'd be handy to have this USB. So I'm just going to eject it so there's no confusion for now. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to do is notice that the Wi-Fi does not work. I have an exclamation point here. So my Broadcom card is a Fenvi T919, supported by all Hackintoshes up until Ventura. Sonoma, they dropped support for Broadcom. So to get this to work, we need to do a few steps. So first thing I'm going to do is download ProperTree. If you don't have it, I should already have it downloaded. You should be familiar with this program. And we're going to open the config.plist on your EFI partition. So EFI OC config.plist. Okay, we have to do a few changes here. And just a side note, I did not use the plug AML. I did have to switch to SSDT USB-X for my Haswell PC. That was a mistake I made in the original configuration. Again, you will make mistakes along the way, and just go back into the configuration or Ubuntu and just change the config as required by what you're discovering from how to Hackintosh your computer, and then just try that again. So that's what happened to me. I was getting a black screen when I was installing macOS Sonoma. So I realized that I was supposed to use SSDT USB-X instead of the plug. So that's what got me working here. Okay, that was just a side note. So the first thing we got to do, so you need to download a few kexts. Those, I'll put a link to that in the description. The first thing you want is, it's on the OpenCore Legacy Patcher GitHub site. You need IOSkywalkFamily.kext. So that's in this zip here. So download this. And we need the legacy. So let's download that. And then another link, we need AMFI pass. So I'm going to download the latest 1.4.0 release. So I'm going to download that. Okay, so I'm going to expand these zips by double clicking them, and it should display a kext file in the same folder. So I'm going to take these 3 kext files, IO80211 Family Legacy, IOSkywalk Family, and AMFI pass.kext. I'm going to copy these 3 files, and I'm going to put them into the EFI OC kext, and I'm going to drop them in there. Great. Now we're going to do File OC Snapshot and select that. So now we're not done yet. Next thing we're going to do is disable SIP. So we're going to put a value in Command F for csr-active-config. So now this is all zeros. That means SIP is 100% enabled. In here, we're going to put 03080000. That's the value to disable SIP. This is going to be a temporary solution. Next thing we're going to do is, so we're going to go to NVRAM Delete, and up on the 7C node here, we're going to add a new child under that, and it's going to be a string, and we're going to call it csr-active-config. One more driver that we need that, or one more tool that we need that I never had you put on there is, and you may have been deleted. So if you go to OpenCore, download OpenCore. I think I told you to delete this. You're going to need it for certain. Go to x86 EFI OC tools and get clean NVRAM. This is a tool that you need. If you don't already have this, you need to put this in your EFI OC tools. Paste that. Okay. Go over here, File, OC Snapshot. That'll get that tool loaded up. And clean NVRAM tool. That's going to be important. Now the next thing we're going to do is reboot, and this should reboot on the boot drive, and SIP should be disabled at this point. Okay, one more thing we have to do. This is a very important step. We need to add a block under kernel. So let's go to kernel, go down to the block section, and we're going to add a new child under block. So new child under block. This is going to be a dictionary, not a string. So change string to dictionary. Add new child under 0. This is going to be called arch, A-R-C-H. And that's going to say any. Then we're going to say new child under 0. And then this can be comment. And this is going to say allow IOSkywalk downgrade. We're pretty much downgrading the Wi-Fi drivers. Add a new child under 0. This is going to be key enabled, capital E, E-N-A-B-L-E-D. And this is going to be Boolean, and it's going to be true. Then we're going to put a new child under 0. And it's going to be called Identifier. Spell that correctly. Capital I. And then this should be spelled correctly too. It's going to be com.apple.iokit.IOSkywalkFamily. Make sure you spell that right, and I'll put this in the description. Next thing we're going to do is put a new child. It's going to be called MaxKernel, and that's going to be blank. And then we're going to do new child, and that's going to be MinKernel. And that's going to be 23.0.0. And this is one of the most important nodes here. New child strategy, and this should be a string, and it should be capital E exclude. Now, what this is going to do is exclude and block this particular driver from the Sonoma drivers and allow the older legacy ones to work. So, okay. So if we reboot, let's close this up and reboot. So press F8 if you need to. If you have more than one drive, you may need to. Select the UEFI OS on your boot drive. Select your Mac disk. So this is going to boot with SIP disabled. That's a security integrity protection. This is required for the next step we're going to do. Okay, once we're rebooted, next thing we're going to do is go to a browser, download OpenCore Legacy Patcher. Go to that, go to Getting Started, and download and build the macOS installer. Go to Release Apps and download the latest. So go to Tags, go to 143, and go down and download the OpenCore Patcher GUI app.zip. Once that's downloaded, copy that to your applications directory. I've already done that on this computer, so go to OpenCore Patcher, run that. And then you're going to do post-install root patch. Notice it's going to say available patches for your system, networking, modern, wireless. So you're going to say start root patching. It'll ask you to relaunch as root, so click yes. Put your password in. And it's going to root patch. So then it's going to ask you to reboot. So we're going to click reboot here. And restart. Now, before it reboots, you're going to do one step that's pretty important. Press F8 to select your boot device. Select UEFI OS, and then hit spacebar and go down to Clean NVRAM press enter, and then hit Control Alt Delete. That's going to clean the NVRAM. Basically, it's a memory of some certain system variables. Press F8 several times and select UEFI OS. Select your boot drive. Okay guys, to be honest with you, I had a few problems booting. I was getting a black screen. So I did compare my backed up EFI from my working system, and looking at that in comparison to my current EFI, I made a few changes to my config and some of the kext there on the boot USB. So I was able to boot back in. There was a few steps that I missed for this particular hardware. So again, when you're doing the config and you're doing your kexts and drivers and everything like that, just make sure you closely read every line of the Dortania guide and search for help if you can't get things to boot properly. That's important, and I still rely on that myself. So just to be honest with you, I did get it working again, restoring some of the features of my previous EFI. So now that we're booted in here, you'll notice, of course, I have the Wi-Fi working. Again, I had to tweak a few things in my EFI to get it to not give me the black screen, but I think that was irrelevant to the OpenCore legacy patcher and the Wi-Fi fix that we did. Now that we've gotten everything working, it's time to take this thing off of debug mode. So let's go to mount EFI.command. Let's mount the boot disk and go to property.command and open the config.plist and EFI OC config.plist. So let's go to the Dortania guide and look at post install steps. So here's the universal steps. So fixing audio, booting without USB, we've already done. Updating OpenCore kext. So you want to have all the release versions. If you use debug version for anything, make it the release version. So release versions of kexts and drivers. That will diminish the amount of debug information and how slow your computer boots. Okay. We downloaded the release versions of everything in this video so far, so that should be all set to go. Next thing we're going to do is go to USB mapping. It's important to get a custom USB mapping for your particular PC. So if you're not sure how to do that, I'll keep a link to that in the description. You could do either Windows or Windows PE, or you could do Hiren's boot CD, and that's the method that I used in my video. That's a legitimate piece of software. If you had any questions whether that was legal or not, you could try those methods, but you should create a USB mapping. Right now we're just using a generic USB map to boot this computer. So the one thing I'm going to recommend we do is add the GUI and boot chime. If you have onboard audio, you could have the boot chime. I use USB audio, so I don't do that part of it. But go to setting up OpenCore's GUI, and you download the binary resources here. You download this, and you download opencanopy.efi, and that's right in the OpenCore. So you should have that downloaded already. If not, you download that, and then go to the resources folder. So EFI OC resources. And here you'll have empty folders. So let's just go ahead and take this resources from the downloaded resources that we just did and put that here and hit replace. That'll take a minute because there's a good amount of files and images in there. Okay, so now we have the graphics on the USB drive. We need OpenCanopy EFI. So go to downloads, OpenCore, x64 EFI OC drivers, and copy OpenCanopy.efi and put that into your EFI partition, EFI OC drivers. Paste that in there. Now just go to property and do file OC snapshot and snapshot the directory to get those files into your config.plist and Command S for save. Okay. And then what we're going to do is change a few configurations. So boot picker mode is external. It's called picker mode. So that's going to be, instead of built-in, it'd be external. Picker attributes is 17. It's already 17. Picker variant, whatever you want it to be. If you want to do boot chime stuff, follow that. And then there's a lot of settings for boot chime stuff. Now we want to get off verbose mode. So now that you're booting properly, there's a few settings you could do. So go to miscellaneous debug and go to Apple debug to false. NVRAM, go to NVRAM to the 7C node. We're gonna get rid of verbose -v. We're gonna get rid of debug equals 0x100 and get rid of those two boot args. UEFI render. So let's go to text renderer. You want it to say built-in graphics. So that's what it defaulted to here. I never changed that to text renderer. So miscellaneous debug, under miscellaneous, you want to set target to 3 instead of 67. All right, and then you want to enable SIP again, because we did that for OpenCore legacy patchers. So go to csr-active-config and just change that to all zeros. So that's 8 zeros, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And then SecureBootModel, change that to default and not disabled. And then under NVRAM, again, under delete, I'm going to get rid of the node that has csr-active-config. Okay. All right. This should be good. Again, you should do your USB mapping. That's very important. And you should do all the other post-install steps for your PC. So there's lots of other things in here that you could be concerned about, such as power management and everything else. Just go to the OpenCore post-install, read through it, and if there's things that you need to do to get things working, now's the time to do it. So I'm going to reboot and hopefully have a graphics picker and not have a bunch of debug information. So I'm going to close everything and reboot. I'm going to press F8 a few times. And I'm going to go to the UEFI OS. And I'm going to hit spacebar. And I'm going to click Clean NVRAM, just for good measure. I'm going to Control-Alt-Delete to reboot. Then I'm going to go into the BIOS, and I'm going to hopefully permanently set my boot device to be the right UEFI. So I'm going to put UEFI OS as the first option and hit exit and save and reset. That way I don't have to keep clicking F8 every time I reboot. So it should just automatically boot into the right drive. And then hit enter there. And now instead of a bunch of text, you get the Apple loading logo. And boom, now we're loaded up. So we have Wi-Fi working, Sonoma's upgraded, and we're booting from the GUI. So guys, thanks for watching. I know this has been a long video. I know there's a few bumps along the way, and as there will be with Hackintoshing just about any computer. So please be patient. I could try to answer your questions in the comments below. I'm not the end-all be-all of tech support when it comes to Hackintosh, so please check your Hackintosh communities on Reddit and on Discord, and there's plenty of help out there for you. So depending on your hardware, as long as it's supported, you should be able to get this working with enough time and effort. But that being said, I just want to say thank you for watching, and please subscribe to this channel for more audio and technology content. Give this video a like. Thanks a lot.